The morning sun was just beginning to peek through the clouds when Dr. Lisa Bennett pulled into the parking lot of Riverside Medical Center. She turned off her car engine and sat there for a moment, taking it all in. This was it, her new beginning. After years of working her way up through some of the toughest hospitals in the country, she was finally here as the new hospital director. Lisa glanced at herself in the rearview mirror and smiled. She looked tired, which made sense. She had spent the entire previous day moving boxes into her new apartment across town, and she was still wearing her casual moving clothes, a comfortable pair of jeans, an old college sweater, and sneakers that had seen better days. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore no makeup. Not exactly the power suit and heels she had planned for her first official day tomorrow, but that was fine. Today was meant to be different anyway. She had a plan. Before the formal introductions, the staff meetings, and all the ceremonial handshakes tomorrow, she wanted to see the real hospital. Not the polished version they would show the new director, but the everyday reality. She wanted to walk through the halls unnoticed, observe how staff interacted with patients, see where the real problems were. You could learn more in an hour of quiet observation than in a week of official reports. Lisa grabbed her bag from the passenger seat and stepped out into the crisp autumn air. The hospital building loomed before her, a mix of old brick and newer glass additions. It had character, she thought. Potential, too. But she already knew from the reports that it was struggling. Patient satisfaction scores were down, staff turnover was high, and there had been several complaints about the overall atmosphere of the place. As she walked toward the main entrance, she passed by a group of people outside the emergency room. A woman was crying while being comforted by what looked like her teenage daughter. An elderly man sat in a wheelchair waiting. The automatic doors slid open with a soft whoosh and Lisa stepped inside. The lobby hit her immediately with its problems. The signage was confusing and outdated. Someone had put up handwritten notes with arrows trying to direct people, which only made things more chaotic. The waiting area was packed, with people sitting in uncomfortable-looking plastic chairs. Some had been waiting so long they had brought blankets. The air smelled like a mix of antiseptic and old coffee. Lisa moved slowly through the space, watching everything. A young mother struggled with a crying baby while trying to fill out paperwork on a clipboard balanced on her knee. No one offered to help. Two staff members stood near the elevators, deep in conversation about their weekend plans, seemingly oblivious to the chaos around them. A man in a suit hurried past, talking loudly on his phone about budget cuts. She made mental notes of everything. This place needed work, but she had seen worse. What it needed most was a culture change, a reminder that hospitals were about people, not just procedures. After about 20 minutes of observation, Lisa decided she wanted to drop off some personal items in her new office. She had a box of books and certificates in her car that she thought she might as well bring in now. But she realized she did not actually know where the administrative wing was located. The building was larger than she had expected, with multiple corridors branching off in different directions. She spotted an information desk near the center of the lobby. A middle-aged woman with short blonde hair sat behind it, typing something on a computer. Her name tag read Deborah Sullivan, RN. There was something about her expression that seemed sharp, almost harsh. She had that look of someone who had been doing the same job for too long and had stopped caring about the softer parts of it. Lisa approached the desk with a friendly smile. "Excuse me, hi. I was wondering if you could help me find the administrative offices." Deborah looked up slowly, her eyes traveling from Lisa's sneakers up to her casual sweater. The look was unmistakable. It was not curiosity. It was judgment. Her lips pressed into a thin line. "What do you need from administration?" Deborah's voice was cold, almost accusatory. Lisa kept her tone pleasant. "I just need to drop something off. Could you point me in the right direction?" Deborah leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "Administration is for staff and authorized personnel only. What's your business there?" There was something in the way she said "your business" that made Lisa pause. A subtle emphasis that felt loaded with meaning. Lisa had experienced enough in her life to recognize that tone. "I have clearance," Lisa said calmly. "I just need directions." "Clearance?" Deborah let out a small, dismissive laugh. "Look, I don't know what you think you're doing here, but you can't just wander around restricted areas. If you're looking for someone, you need to wait in the lobby like everyone else, or go to the emergency room if you have a medical issue." Lisa felt a familiar tightness in her chest. Stay calm, she told herself. This was not the first time something like this had happened, and it probably would not be the last, but it still stung every single time. "I'm not looking for medical care," Lisa said, keeping her voice steady. "I have legitimate business in the administrative wing. If you could just tell me which hallway—" "I don't think you're hearing me," Deborah interrupted, her voice getting sharper. "I've worked here for 15 years. I know who belongs in administration and who doesn't, and you—" She paused, looking Lisa up and down again with obvious disdain. "You need to state your actual purpose, or I'm going to have to ask you to leave." A few people in the waiting area were starting to notice the exchange. An older gentleman looked over with concern. A young woman had pulled out her phone, possibly recording. Lisa could feel eyes on her. This was escalating in a way she had not anticipated. She had two choices. She could reveal who she was right now, pull out her identification and watch Deborah's face change from smugness to horror, or she could see how far this went. How the system really worked when no one knew who was watching. "I'm not causing any trouble," Lisa said quietly. "I'm simply asking for directions." Deborah stood up now, her hand moving toward the phone on her desk. "That's it? I'm calling security. We have protocols here for a reason. We can't have random people wandering around claiming they have business in restricted areas. For all I know, you could be trying to steal medications or access patient records or who knows what." The accusation hung in the air like poison. Lisa felt her face grow hot. Around them, the lobby had gone quieter. People were definitely watching now. "You really want to do this?" Lisa asked, giving Deborah one more chance. "I'm doing my job," Deborah said firmly, picking up the phone, "which is protecting this hospital and its patients from people who don't belong here." "Security. Yes, this is Deborah Sullivan at the main information desk. I need someone down here immediately. I have a situation." Lisa closed her eyes for a brief moment. She thought about all the reports she had read about this hospital. All the complaints about staff attitudes and people feeling unwelcome. She had wondered how bad it really was. Now she knew. This was not just one bad employee having an off day. This was something deeper, something systemic. When she opened her eyes again, she saw Deborah looking at her with a mixture of satisfaction and suspicion. In the background, she could hear someone paging security over the intercom system. Lisa adjusted the strap of her bag on her shoulder and stood up straighter. Tomorrow was going to be very interesting indeed, but first, she had to get through whatever was about to happen next. The 3 minutes it took for security to arrive felt like an eternity. Lisa stood there quietly, her bag still on her shoulder while Deborah kept shooting her warning glares from behind the desk. The nurse had gone back to her computer, typing aggressively, probably documenting the incident in whatever way made her look like a hero. Around them, the waiting room had transformed into an unofficial audience. People were no longer pretending not to watch. Some whispered to each other. A few held up their phones, though Lisa could not tell if they were actually recording or just holding them nervously. She recognized the look on their faces. Some showed sympathy. Others looked uncomfortable, like they wanted to help but did not know how. A handful seemed to agree with Deborah, nodding along as if Lisa was indeed some kind of threat. Finally, a security guard emerged from one of the side corridors. He was a tall man in his late 40s with graying hair and a slight limp in his right leg. His uniform was neat and his expression was cautious rather than aggressive. His name tag said Robert Chen Security. "Deborah, what's going on?" he asked, his voice measured and professional. Deborah stood up quickly, pointing at Lisa like she was presenting evidence in a trial. "This woman refuses to leave. She's demanding access to the administrative wing and won't explain her business here. She's being extremely difficult, and I think she might be trying to gain unauthorized access to restricted areas." Robert turned to look at Lisa, and something in his expression shifted. He seemed to be taking in the whole scene. A calm, well-dressed woman standing peacefully with a simple bag. A packed waiting room watching with rapt attention. Deborah practically vibrating with righteous anger. "Ma'am," he said to Lisa, his tone respectful, "is there something I can help you with? Maybe we can clear this up." Lisa appreciated his approach. Here was someone who seemed to understand that jumping to conclusions was rarely the answer. "I was simply asking for directions to the administrative offices. I have business there, but things seem to have escalated rather quickly." "Business there?" Deborah interjected before Robert could respond. "Robert, she won't tell me what her actual business is. She just keeps saying she has clearance. but refuses to show any ID or explain herself properly. You know, we can't have random people accessing administrative areas. Who knows what she's really after? There was that tone again, that suggestion of something more than just concern about hospital protocol. Lisa caught it. Robert caught it too, based on the brief frown that crossed his face. "Ma'am, do you have any identification with you?" Robert asked gently. "Maybe we can sort this out quickly." Lisa could have ended it right there. She had her new hospital ID in her bag, along with the letter of appointment and various other documents proving exactly who she was. But something made her hesitate. This was not just about her anymore. This was about every person who would walk through these doors without the shield of an important title. Every patient, every visitor, every job applicant who might face the same treatment. "I do have identification," Lisa said slowly. "But I'm curious about something first. What exactly have I done that warrants this response?" I asked for directions. "That's all. I haven't been aggressive. I haven't broken any rules. So what is it about me specifically that's so threatening?" The question hung in the air. A few people in the waiting room shifted uncomfortably. One elderly woman nodded in agreement. Deborah's face flushed red. "Now you're trying to make this about something it's not. This is about security protocol, pure and simple. We have rules here for everyone, and you're not special just because you—" She stopped herself, but the damage was done. The unfinished sentence said more than any completed thought could have. "Just because I what?" Lisa asked quietly. "Just because you're making a scene." Deborah recovered, but her voice had taken on a defensive edge. "If you would simply cooperate and show proper identification like everyone else has to do, we wouldn't be having this problem." "Actually," a voice spoke up from near the elevators, "I don't remember ever being asked for ID just to ask for directions." Everyone turned to look. A young man in scrubs stood there, his arms crossed. He looked like a resident, maybe in his late 20s, with tired eyes that suggested he was pulling a long shift. His name tag identified him as Dr. Kevin Park. "Excuse me?" Deborah said, her voice dripping with condescension. "Dr. Park, this doesn't concern you." "I'm just saying," Kevin continued, walking closer. "I've seen plenty of people ask for directions at that desk. Family members, delivery people, visitors. I've never seen anyone get security called on them for it." "That's because those people weren't acting suspicious," Deborah shot back. "What exactly is suspicious about asking for directions?" Kevin pressed. His voice was calm but firm. Deborah sputtered for a moment. The way she's dressed, showing up and demanding access to administration, refusing to properly identify herself. "It's not normal." "Not normal for who?" Kevin asked, and the question landed like a stone in still water. Lisa watched the exchange with a mixture of gratitude and sadness. Here was someone willing to speak up, but the fact that it took a doctor, someone with status and authority, for anyone to question what was happening said volumes about the culture of this place. Robert, the security guard, looked increasingly uncomfortable. "Look, folks, let's all just take a breath here. Ma'am, if you could just show me some ID, we can verify your business here and everyone can go about their day." "Of course," Lisa said, but before she could reach for her bag, Deborah interrupted again. "Robert, I don't think you understand the seriousness of this. We've had problems with people trying to access medication storage areas. Last month, someone tried to steal from the pharmacy. We can't just take people at their word. What if she's lying? What if she's part of some scheme?" The accusation was absurd, but Lisa could see it was working on some level. Robert looked torn between his obvious discomfort with the situation and his duty to take security concerns seriously. "That's quite an accusation," Kevin said, shaking his head. "Based on what exactly?" "Based on my 15 years of experience working here," Deborah snapped. "Based on my instincts that something isn't right about this situation. I've seen all types come through these doors, and I know when something's off." Lisa felt her heart pounding. She had dealt with this kind of thing before, but it never got easier. The casual cruelty of it, the way someone could look at you and decide you were a threat, a problem, something that did not belong, all without knowing a single thing about you. "Your instincts," Lisa said softly. "Or your assumptions." Deborah's eyes flashed. "I don't have to stand here and be accused of what?" Lisa asked. "I haven't accused you of anything. I've simply asked for directions. You're the one who's made this into something else entirely." A small crowd had gathered now. A few other staff members had noticed the commotion. A young woman who looked like she worked in patient services stood to the side, wringing her hands nervously. An older doctor in a white coat watched from near the pharmacy window, his expression unreadable. "You know what?" Deborah said, her voice rising. "I'm done with this. Robert, either escort her out or I'm calling the police. She's trespassing and causing a disturbance." "I'm not causing anything," Lisa said, her voice still calm but with an edge now. "I'm standing here quietly while you create a scene." "Creating a scene?" Deborah laughed bitterly. "You walk in here dressed like you just rolled out of bed, demand access to restricted areas, refuse to cooperate, and I'm creating a scene?" Lisa took a deep breath. This was the moment. She could feel it. She could end this now with a simple flash of her ID badge, but she needed everyone to see this play out. She needed them to understand what was happening, not just to her, but in their hospital every day. "Nurse Sullivan," Lisa said, using Deborah's name for the first time, "I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I'd appreciate an honest answer. If I were dressed differently, if I looked different, would we be having this conversation right now?" The lobby went completely silent. Even the usual hospital sounds seemed to fade into the background. Deborah's mouth opened and closed. "This has nothing to do with—" "It has everything to do with it," Kevin interjected. "And everyone here knows it." Several people in the waiting room murmured in agreement. One woman actually started a slow clap that quickly died out when no one joined her. Deborah's face was now bright red. She looked around at the watching crowd, at Robert's uncomfortable expression, at Kevin's disappointed shake of his head. "Fine," she said finally. "You want to know who you can talk to? The hospital director starts tomorrow. You can file a complaint with her. Now either show proper ID or leave. Those are your options." Lisa allowed herself a small smile. "The hospital director. Starting tomorrow." "That's right," Deborah said smugly. "And I'll make sure she hears all about this incident. About how you came in here causing problems and playing the victim. I'm sure she'll be very interested in hearing about today." Lisa agreed. Something in her tone made Kevin look at her more closely. His eyes widened slightly as if a puzzle piece had just clicked into place. Robert cleared his throat. "Ma'am, your identification?" Lisa reached into her bag slowly, her fingers closing around the leather wallet that held her new hospital ID badge. But she did not pull it out yet. "Before I show you this," she said, "I want everyone here to remember exactly what happened today, how easy it is to make someone feel unwelcome, how quickly we judge people based on how they look rather than who they are." She pulled out the badge but held it close to her chest where only Robert could see it. His eyes went wide. The color drained from his face. "Oh no," he whispered. "What?" Deborah demanded. "What is it?" Lisa finally turned the badge around so everyone could see. The photo showed her face. The title beneath it read, "Dr. Lisa Bennett, Hospital Director." The silence that followed was deafening. The lobby of Riverside Medical Center had never been so quiet. You could have heard a pin drop. Every eye was fixed on the ID badge in Lisa's hand, and then on Deborah's face as the realization crashed over her like a wave. Deborah's expression went through several stages in the span of just a few seconds. First came confusion, her eyes squinting at the badge as if she could not quite process what she was seeing. Then came recognition, and with it absolute horror. Her face went from red to white in an instant. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. "Oh my God," someone whispered from the waiting area. Robert, the security guard, took a step back, his hand moving to his forehead. "Dr. Bennett, I am so sorry. I had no idea." If you had known who I was," Lisa interrupted gently, "you would have treated me differently." "But that's exactly the problem, isn't it? Everyone deserves respect regardless of their title or position." Kevin, the young doctor who had spoken up, let out a long breath. He looked at Lisa with a mixture of relief and vindication, and then turned to look at Deborah with something close to disgust. Deborah finally found her voice, though it came out shaky and desperate. "Dr. Bennett, I didn't— You weren't supposed to start until tomorrow. How was I supposed to know? You were dressed so casually and you didn't identify yourself properly, and—" "I asked for directions," Lisa said, her voice calm but firm. "That's all. Just directions. And instead of helping me, you made assumptions. You decided I didn't belong here based on nothing more than how I looked." "But I was just following protocol," Deborah insisted, her voice getting higher. "Security is important. We have to be careful about who we let access certain areas. I was protecting the hospital." "Protecting it from what?" Lisa asked. "From someone asking for directions?" Let me ask you something, Nurse Sullivan. In your 15 years here, how many other people have you called security on for asking where the administrative offices are? Deborah opened her mouth, then closed it. The silence was answer enough. A woman in the waiting area stood up. She was older, maybe in her 60s, with kind eyes. I asked for directions to administration just last week, she said, her voice carrying across the lobby. Nobody called security on me. The nurse at that desk smiled and drew me a little map. Same here, a man added. I was looking for HR to drop off my son's job application. Nobody questioned me at all. More voices joined in. People who had witnessed the whole thing were now speaking up, their words creating a chorus of uncomfortable truth. The pattern was clear to everyone now, undeniable and ugly. Deborah looked around wildly like a cornered animal. This isn't fair. You're all making this into something it's not. I made a mistake, okay? I'm sorry. But she should have just shown her ID from the beginning instead of making it difficult. Making it difficult? Kevin spoke up again, shaking his head. She asked for directions. You escalated it. You called security. You made accusations about theft and unauthorized access. All she did was stand there calmly while you created this entire situation. Lisa watched Deborah struggle, and despite everything, she felt a strange kind of sadness. Not pity exactly, but something more complicated. She had seen this before many times. People who genuinely believed they were doing the right thing, unable to see their own biases even when confronted with them directly. Nurse Sullivan, Lisa said, drawing Deborah's attention back to her. I want you to think about something. Really think about it. In the last hour, how many people walked through this lobby? How many were dressed casually? How many asked you questions? Now ask yourself honestly, why was I the only one who seemed suspicious to you? Deborah's eyes filled with tears, but Lisa could not tell if they were tears of genuine remorse or just fear about losing her job. I don't know, Deborah whispered. I thought, you didn't think, Lisa said. You reacted. And your reaction tells us something important about the environment in this hospital. Because if this is how staff treats someone asking for directions, how do you think patients are being treated? A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Several people nodded. A younger woman in scrubs standing near the pharmacy looked down at her feet, as if she was remembering her own behavior and not liking what she saw. Robert cleared his throat awkwardly. Dr. Bennett, again, I apologize for my part in this. I should have handled it better. You were doing your job, Lisa acknowledged, and you did it respectfully. But I want you to think about why you were called in the first place, whether the concern was legitimate or based on something else entirely. Robert nodded slowly, understanding dawning in his eyes. Lisa turned to address the wider crowd that had gathered. Staff members, patients, visitors, all watching this unexpected drama unfold. I wasn't planning to introduce myself this way, she said, her voice carrying across the space. I was supposed to have a formal welcome meeting tomorrow with prepared speeches and handshakes. But maybe this is better. Maybe this is more honest. She took a breath, choosing her words carefully. This hospital is struggling. I've read the reports. Patient satisfaction is down. Staff morale is low. People feel unwelcome here, both staff and patients. And what happened today is a perfect example of why. It's not about one person or one incident. It's about a culture that has developed over time. A culture where assumptions are made, where some people are treated with suspicion while others are given the benefit of the doubt. People were listening intently now. Even those who had been on their phones were paying attention. Starting tomorrow, things are going to change, Lisa continued. We're going to have mandatory training for all staff. Not just the basic compliance stuff, but real, meaningful discussions about respect and dignity, and the biases we all carry, whether we realize it or not. We're going to look at our policies and procedures and ask ourselves if they're truly fair to everyone, and we're going to create an environment where incidents like this can't happen, because everyone will be too busy treating each other like human beings. A few people actually clapped. It started with the older woman who had spoken up earlier, then spread through the crowd. Not everyone joined in, but enough did that the sound echoed through the lobby. Deborah stood frozen by her desk, tears now streaming down her face. She looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. Lisa turned back to her. Nurse Sullivan, I want to see you in my office tomorrow at 9 a.m. sharp. We're going to have a conversation about what happened here today and what comes next. Are you going to fire me? Deborah asked, her voice barely audible. Lisa considered the question. It would be easy to fire her. Clean and simple. One person pays the price and everyone else can go back to business as usual. But that would not fix anything. That would not change the culture that allowed this to happen in the first place. I haven't decided yet, Lisa said honestly, but I can tell you this. What happens next depends entirely on whether you're capable of real change. Not just saying sorry because you got caught. Not just being careful because you know who I am now, but genuine understanding of why what you did was wrong and a commitment to do better. Deborah nodded frantically. Yes, I can change. I will change. Please, I need this job. I have bills and my daughter's college tuition and… Tomorrow, Lisa repeated firmly. 9 a.m., we'll talk then. She turned to Kevin. Dr. Park, thank you for speaking up. That took courage, especially in front of senior staff. I'd like to speak with you as well, but for different reasons. Come by tomorrow afternoon if you have time. Kevin nodded, looking surprised but pleased. Of course, Dr. Bennett. Lisa looked at Robert. Mr. Chen, I'll need a full incident report from you, but I want you to know that I don't hold you responsible for this situation. You were called to respond to what you were told was a security concern, and you handled it professionally. Thank you. Dr. Bennett, Robert said, relief evident on his face. Finally, Lisa addressed the crowd one more time. I know this was uncomfortable to witness, but sometimes discomfort is necessary for growth. I hope what happened here today will make all of us think more carefully about our assumptions and actions. This hospital can be better. We can be better. And starting tomorrow, we will be. She adjusted her bag on her shoulder and looked around the lobby one last time. The outdated signs, the uncomfortable chairs, the worn carpeting, it all needed work. But more than the physical space, it was the people and the culture that needed attention first. Now, if someone could please point me toward the administrative wing, Lisa said with a slight smile. I'd like to finally drop off this box of books before they break my shoulder. A nervous laugh rippled through the crowd. A young man in maintenance uniform stepped forward quickly. I'll show you the way, Dr. Bennett. It's just down this corridor and to the left. Thank you, Lisa said warmly. I appreciate it. As she walked away, she could hear the lobby erupting into whispered conversations. By tomorrow, everyone in the hospital would know what happened. That was good. Change started with awareness, and awareness sometimes required a shock to the system. Tomorrow would be a very long day, but it would also be the beginning of something new. Lisa barely slept that night. She lay in her new apartment surrounded by half-unpacked boxes, staring at the ceiling and replaying yesterday's events in her mind. Part of her wondered if she had handled it correctly. Maybe she should have just shown her ID immediately and avoided the whole scene. But no, she knew that would have solved nothing. Sometimes the truth needed to come out in uncomfortable ways. She arrived at the hospital at 6 in the morning, 3 hours before the mandatory staff meeting. Her office was on the 4th floor, a spacious room with large windows overlooking the parking lot. The previous director had left it surprisingly bare. Just a desk, some filing cabinets, and a few dying plants on the windowsill. Lisa spent the quiet morning hours unpacking her books and preparing her thoughts for what was sure to be a difficult day. By 8:30, she could hear the sound of people gathering in the main conference hall downstairs. Voices murmured, chairs scraped against floors, nervous energy filled the air. Lisa checked her reflection one more time. Today she wore a professional navy suit and her hair was styled neatly. She looked every bit the hospital director. Yesterday's casual observer was gone, replaced by the person she needed to be for this moment. At exactly 9 a.m., Lisa walked into the conference hall. The room was packed. Every seat was taken and people lined the walls. Doctors, nurses, technicians, administrative staff, housekeeping, cafeteria workers. Everyone. The moment she appeared, the room fell silent. She could feel hundreds of eyes on her. I could sense the mixture of curiosity, nervousness, and in some cases, guilt. She walked to the podium at the front and set down her notes. For a long moment, she just looked at the crowd, making eye contact with different people. She saw Kevin, the young doctor who had spoken up yesterday. He gave her an encouraging nod. She saw Robert, the security guard, sitting straight in his chair with an attentive expression. And there in the 3rd row, she saw Deborah. The nurse looked like she had not slept at all. Her eyes were red and puffy, her face pale. She stared at her lap, unable to meet anyone's gaze. Good morning, Lisa began, her voice calm but carrying across the room. I'm Dr. Lisa Bennett, and as of today, I'm officially your new hospital director. I had a whole speech prepared for this moment. I was going to talk about my vision for this hospital, my plans for improvement, all the usual things you say at these meetings. She paused, letting the silence stretch for a moment. But I think we need to talk about what happened yesterday instead. The room seemed to collectively hold its breath. A few people shifted uncomfortably in their seats. By now, most of you have probably heard about the incident in the lobby. For those who haven't, let me tell you what happened. I came to the hospital dressed casually because I had just finished moving. I wanted to observe the hospital before my official start date, to see how things really worked when nobody knew who I was. I asked for directions to the administrative wing. Simple request. But what happened next was not simple at all. Lisa's eyes scanned the room. Some people were nodding. Others looked down at their hands. I was treated with suspicion, with hostility. Security was called. I was accused of potentially trying to steal medications or access areas where I did not belong, all because I asked for directions while not looking the way someone expected an important person to look. She let that sink in for a moment. Now I want to be very clear about something. This is not about shaming one person. What happened yesterday was a symptom of something much bigger. It was a window into a culture that has developed here over time. A culture where some people are given the benefit of the doubt and others are not. Where assumptions are made based on appearance rather than character. Where respect is conditional rather than universal. An older doctor in the front row raised his hand tentatively. Lisa nodded at him. Dr. Bennett, with all due respect, are we talking about racism? Because I think that's a very serious accusation to make. Lisa appreciated the directness. I'm talking about bias. We all have it. Every single one of us walks around with assumptions and prejudices we have learned over our lifetimes. Sometimes that bias is conscious. More often it's not. But whether we're aware of it or not, it affects how we treat people. And in a hospital, where people come during the most vulnerable moments of their lives, that can have serious consequences. She clicked to the next slide on the screen behind her. It showed statistics from patient satisfaction surveys. The numbers were not good. Look at these numbers. 23% of patients reported feeling disrespected by staff. 15% said they felt discriminated against. 31% said they would not recommend this hospital to friends or family. These are not just numbers on a screen. These are people. Human beings who came here needing help and left feeling worse than when they arrived. The room was completely silent now. The weight of those numbers hung heavy in the air. Starting today, we are implementing mandatory training for all staff. Not the quick online module you click through while checking your email. Real training. Facilitated discussions. Role-playing exercises. Uncomfortable conversations about bias, privilege, and how we show up for the people we serve. A few people groaned quietly. Lisa raised her hand. I know training sounds tedious. But here's the thing. This hospital is failing. Not because our doctors are not skilled or our nurses are not dedicated, but because we have forgotten the most basic truth of healthcare. People are not just bodies to fix. They are human beings deserving of dignity and respect, every single one of them. She advanced to the next slide, which showed her plans for the coming months. Policy reviews, community feedback sessions, a new patient advocacy office, diversity in hiring practices. Change is hard. It's uncomfortable. Some of you might resist it, but I want you to understand something. This is not optional. If you work here, you will be part of this change. If you can't commit to treating every person who walks through these doors with respect, regardless of what they look like or where they come from, then this is not the place for you. She could see some people nodding with approval. Others looked skeptical. A few seemed openly resistant. That was okay. She had expected that. I also want to say this. Yesterday, someone made a mistake. A serious mistake. But we all make mistakes. What matters is what we do next. Whether we learn and grow or whether we dig in and defend behavior that needs to change. Her eyes found Deborah in the crowd. The nurse was crying silently, tears streaming down her face. I believe in second chances. I believe people can change, but that belief has to be met with genuine effort, not just empty apologies. So we are going to create a culture here where mistakes can be learning opportunities, but where harmful behavior will not be tolerated. Lisa wrapped up her speech with some logistical information about the training schedule and new policies, then opened the floor for questions. There were many, some supportive, some challenging. She answered each one thoughtfully, never defensive, always redirecting back to the core message of dignity and respect. When the meeting finally ended an hour later, People filed out slowly, talking in hushed voices. Lisa returned to her office and sat down behind her desk. She had 15 minutes before Deborah was scheduled to arrive. She used the time to review the nurse's personnel file, 15 years of employment, generally good performance reviews, no previous complaints, but also no outstanding commendations or recognition for exceptional patient care. Just someone who had been showing up and doing the minimum for a long time. At exactly 9 a.m., there was a soft knock on her door. "Come in," Lisa called. Deborah entered slowly, looking like she was walking to her execution. Her eyes were still red from crying. She wore her nurse's uniform, but it seemed to hang on her differently today, as if the confidence she usually wore with it had evaporated. "Sit down." "Please," Lisa said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. Deborah sat, perched on the edge of the chair, hands clasped tightly in her lap. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "Do you understand why you're here?" Lisa finally asked. Deborah nodded. "To fire me." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Maybe," Lisa said honestly. "That depends on this conversation. Tell me, Deborah, why do you think what happened yesterday was wrong?" Deborah looked up, surprised by the question. "Because you're the hospital director and I didn't recognize you." Lisa shook her head. "Try again." Deborah's brow furrowed. "Because I called security when I shouldn't have?" "You're still not getting it," Lisa said, not unkindly. "Deborah, what you did yesterday would have been wrong even if I had been just a regular visitor. Even if I had been a patient's family member, or a delivery person, or someone off the street asking for help. Do you understand that?" Fresh tears spilled down Deborah's cheeks. "I don't know," she admitted. I thought I was doing my job. Protecting the hospital. From what?" Lisa asked gently. "From someone asking for directions? From—" Deborah trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. "From someone who didn't look like they belonged," Lisa finished for her. "That's what you thought, isn't it? Be honest." Deborah buried her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking. When she finally looked up, her face was blotchy and raw. "I don't know, maybe. I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be someone who judges people like that. But maybe I am. I don't know anymore." The admission hung between them. It was not a full acknowledgement, but it was something. A crack in the armor. A moment of genuine uncertainty rather than defensive justification. Lisa leaned forward. "Here's what I'm offering you, Deborah. A choice. Option 1. I terminate your employment effective immediately. You leave today with a severance package and a neutral reference. Clean break." Deborah's face crumpled. "Option 2, Lisa continued, is harder. You take a 2-week unpaid suspension. During that time, you will complete intensive training on implicit bias and cultural competency. You will meet with a counselor 3 times a week to work through what happened and why. When you return, you will be on 6 months probation working under direct supervision. 1 complaint, 1 incident, and you're done. You will also issue a public apology to the staff and commit to being part of the solution here." Deborah looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. "You would give me another chance? After what I did?" "I'm giving you the opportunity to change," Lisa corrected. "But you have to do the work, real work, not just going through the motions. If you come back from this suspension the same person, nothing will change. You have to want to be better." "I do," Deborah said quickly. "I want to change. I need this job, but more than that, I don't want to be the person who did what I did yesterday. I have a daughter. What if someone treated her that way? I'd be furious. How did I become someone who treats others like that?" It was the first truly insightful thing Deborah had said. Lisa nodded. Slowly. "That's the question you need to answer during your suspension. Which option do you choose?" Deborah did not answer right away. She sat there in Lisa's office, staring at her hands, weighing her options. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the ventilation system and the distant sound of hospital activity beyond the closed door. "If I take option 2, Deborah finally said, her voice shaky, "and I do all the work, and I really try to change, but I still mess up, what happens then?" Lisa appreciated the honesty of the question. "It depends on the situation. If you're genuinely trying and you make a mistake, we work through it. But if you fall back into old patterns, if you stop putting in the effort, then yes, your employment ends. This isn't about perfection. It's about commitment to growth." Deborah nodded slowly, processing this. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why are you giving me this chance?" You could just fire me and make an example out of me. It would probably be easier. Lisa leaned back in her chair, considering the question. Because firing you doesn't fix the problem. It just moves it somewhere else. You'd go work at another hospital and maybe the same thing would happen again. But more than that, I believe people can change if they want to. Not everyone does. Some people are too comfortable with who they are. But I see something in you, Deborah. I see someone who's genuinely shaken by what she did. That's a starting point. Deborah's eyes filled with tears again. I choose option 2. I want to change. I need to change. Then we start today, Lisa said. Clear out your locker. I'll have HR set up your training schedule and counseling appointments. I expect you back here in 2 weeks, and when you return, you better be ready to do things differently. Deborah stood up, wiping her eyes. Dr. Bennett, I know saying sorry isn't enough, but I am sorry. Not just because I got caught. I'm sorry for how I made you feel. For how I've probably made other people feel over the years without even realizing it. Tell me that again in 6 months, Lisa said. And show me through your actions, not just your words. Deborah left the office and Lisa sat alone for a moment. She hoped she had made the right decision. Only time would tell. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind. Lisa threw herself into transforming the hospital culture. She held town hall meetings where staff could voice concerns anonymously. She brought in consultants to lead bias training sessions that were far more intensive than anyone expected. Some staff embraced the changes. Others complained loudly about the new requirements. A few even quit, claiming the hospital was becoming too politically correct. Lisa let them go without protest. If people could not commit to treating everyone with respect, they did not belong there anyway. Kevin, the young doctor who had spoken up in the lobby that first day, became one of Lisa's strongest allies. She had asked him to lead a new committee focused on patient experience and inclusion. He approached the role with enthusiasm, gathering feedback from patients and staff, identifying problems, proposing solutions. He had a gift for making people feel heard. When Deborah returned after her 2 weeks, she looked different. Not physically, but something in her demeanor had shifted. She was quieter, more thoughtful. Gone was the sharp edge in her voice, the quick judgments, the dismissive attitude. She started her probation working in the pediatric ward under the supervision of one of the hospital's most respected nurses, an older woman named Grace who had a reputation for being both kind and demanding. Grace did not go easy on Deborah. She watched her like a hawk, correcting her when she was too curt with families, pushing her to slow down and really listen to people's concerns, making her think about the impact of her words and actions. It was hard work, uncomfortable work, but Deborah kept at it. One afternoon, about a month into Deborah's probation, Lisa was doing her usual rounds through the hospital when she passed by the pediatric ward. She saw Deborah kneeling down next to a young patient, a little boy who was crying. The boy's mother stood nearby looking exhausted and worried. It's okay to be scared, Deborah was saying gently to the child. This place can be scary, but we're going to take really good care of you. And your mom can stay right here with you the whole time. Would you like that? The little boy nodded, sniffling. Deborah looked up at the mother with a warm smile. Is there anything I can get for you? Coffee? Something to eat? I know it's hard when your child is sick. The mother's eyes filled with grateful tears. Thank you. That's so kind. Lisa watched the interaction for another moment, then quietly moved on. It was a small thing, maybe, but it mattered. That was real change, not just going through the motions. 3 months after that first day, the hospital had its quarterly patient satisfaction survey results. Lisa opened the report with nervous anticipation. The numbers had been so bad before. She scanned the pages and slowly a smile spread across her face. Patients reporting feeling respected by staff. Up 18%. Those who felt discriminated against down 11%. People who would recommend the hospital up 22%. It was not perfect yet, but it was real. Measurable progress. She called a staff meeting to share the results. The room erupted in applause when she showed the numbers. People were proud. They could see their efforts making a difference. This is what happens when we commit to change, Lisa told them. When we decide that every person who walks through our doors deserves our best. Not just our medical skills, but our compassion, our respect, our humanity. You all did this. Keep it up. After the meeting, Deborah approached Lisa hesitantly. Dr. Bennett, do you have a minute? Of course. Walk with me. They walked through the halls together, passing by bustling nurses' stations and quiet patient rooms. I wanted to thank you, Deborah said, for giving me a second chance. I almost threw it away. Did you know that in my second week back I almost quit? The work was so hard and Grace was pushing me so much and I thought it would be easier to just leave. What made you stay? Lisa asked. My daughter came to visit me. She's in college now studying social work. I told her what happened, everything. I expected her to be supportive, to tell me I was treated unfairly. But instead she looked at me and said, Mom, you need to do better. That hit harder than anything, Lisa nodded. Smart daughter, she is. Smarter than me. Deborah smiled sadly. I've been thinking a lot about all the times over the years when I probably made someone feel unwelcome, without even realizing it. All the snap judgments I made. It's hard to look at yourself that honestly, but I'm trying. That's all anyone can ask, Lisa said. Keep trying. As they rounded a corner, they nearly bumped into a woman in her 30s who was clearly lost, turning around in circles with a confused expression. She was wearing gym clothes and carrying a duffel bag. Before Lisa could say anything, Deborah stepped forward with a warm smile. Hi there, you look like you might need some help. Where are you trying to get to? The woman looked relieved. Yes, thank you. I'm looking for the physical therapy department. I have an appointment, but these hallways all look the same. I know, the signage is confusing. We're actually working on that, Deborah said. She pulled out a small map from her pocket that the hospital had started providing to staff for this exact purpose. You're here and PT is right down this hallway, third door on the left. You can't miss it, there's a big sign with a walking person on it. That's so helpful, thank you so much, the woman said gratefully. You're welcome. I hope your appointment goes well, Deborah said. The woman walked away and Deborah turned to find Lisa watching her with a knowing look. What? Deborah asked. Nothing, Lisa said with a small smile, just noticing the difference. That woman was dressed casually, carrying a bag, looking a bit out of place. And you didn't assume anything negative. You just helped. Deborah's cheeks flushed. I guess I did. I didn't even think about it. Then her expression shifted to something more serious. That's how it should have been from the beginning with you. Just help first, no questions, no judgments. I'm sorry it took me so long to understand that. But you understand it now, Lisa said. That's what matters. 6 months after that first dramatic day, Lisa sat in her office looking at the latest reports. Patient satisfaction continued to climb. Staff retention was up. The hospital had received recognition from a national healthcare organization for its commitment to inclusive care. Several other hospitals had reached out asking about their training program. But more than the numbers and the awards, Lisa noticed the little things. The way staff greeted visitors warmly at every entrance, the multilingual signs that had been installed, the new quiet room for prayer and meditation that welcomed all faiths, the way doctors now routinely asked patients how they preferred to be addressed, small changes that added up to something bigger. Kevin stopped by her office that afternoon. Have you seen the new wall in the main lobby? He asked excitedly. Not yet. What wall? Come on, I'll show you. They walked down to the lobby together and Lisa stopped in surprise. Where there had once been a blank wall, there was now a massive display titled Our Community. It featured photos and stories from staff and patients, representing the incredible diversity of people who made up Riverside Medical Center. Different ages, different backgrounds, different stories, all connected by their relationship to this hospital. The staff put it together, Kevin explained. Everyone wanted to contribute,